Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're exploring a truly mind-bending existential detective story. In this explainer, we're going to crack open an incredibly strange source document titled The Monadology of Atoms. It's a text that claims to be a translation of 3 impossible manuscripts. And when I say impossible, I mean they completely defy the known laws of physics, logic, and computing. They literally shouldn't even exist, yet together they supposedly hold the ultimate secret to existence itself. It's a wildly fascinating journey, so let's get into it.
To find the answer to this massive question, we have to fall down a pretty deep philosophical rabbit hole. Think of it like a set of Russian nesting dolls. Our source text invites us to strip away everything, matter, logic, and even meaning itself, until we hit the absolute, undeniable bedrock of the universe. So you have to ask yourself, what is actually left when you remove absolutely everything that can be removed?
While our clues come from 3 anomalous texts discovered in a forgotten archive, the source describes them beautifully, leaning heavily into this brilliant sci-fi aesthetic. The first manuscript arrived as ash and thunder, occupying a void that somehow weighed exactly 33 grams. The second was bound in pure logic, with pages made of actual 3-dimensional theorems. Seriously, imagine a book where reading it means physically walking through floating geometric proofs. And the third. It spontaneously generated its own code inside a cybernetic machine. These are our 3 layers of reality.
All right, layer 1, the physical. This perspective channels the ancient Roman philosopher Lucretius, stripping away all the myths and giving us a universe built entirely on an infinite, invisible reign of physical matter. Let's take a look.
Here's exactly how Lucretius builds this physical foundation. First, he asserts that nothing comes from nothing. There's no magic spark creating matter out of thin air. Following that, nothing returns to nothing, meaning matter cannot be truly destroyed. Therefore, all things must arise from definite, solid atoms. He proposes that these atoms are infinite in number, wildly diverse in shape, and completely eternal. And finally, in their natural state, they just fall endlessly through an infinite void. Because nothing is ever magically created or destroyed, the universe is just one massive, constant recycling program. The atoms forming the device you're watching this on right now, or the body you inhabit, are the exact same eternal letters of a cosmic alphabet, just continuously shuffled into new words over billions of years.
But there's a massive problem here. Think about it. If these atoms just fell straight down forever in perfectly parallel lines, kind of like awkward people avoiding eye contact in a long hallway, they'd never actually interact. The universe would be completely sterile. So to spark life and complexity, there must be a spontaneous, unpredictable swerve, what Lucretius calls the clinamen. It's a tiny, uncaused shift in trajectory. That one atom suddenly bumping into another sparks the very first cosmic crash, leading to a glorious chain reaction of creation.
So the absolutely crucial point in this first layer is that reality isn't just dead, rigid substance. The foundation of the physical world isn't the atom itself, it's the atom's spontaneity, its chance to deviate. It is the unearned grace of things being otherwise than they absolutely had to be. That tiny swerve is the birthplace of free will and novelty.
But what if we keep digging? What happens to our foundation if you infinitely divide these physical atoms, finding smaller and smaller parts until the physical ground entirely falls out from under you? That brings us to layer 2, the metaphysical. To solve this infinite division problem, our second text, channeling the philosopher and mathematician Leibniz, shifts us away from solid physical matter to what he calls monads. Now, these aren't physical particles bouncing in a void. Monads are indivisible, non-physical points of pure perception. They're less like grains of sand and more like individual camera lenses or single points of perspective. In this layer, reality is essentially a vast hall of mirrors, where every single monad perceives and reflects the entire universe from its own completely unique angle.
Now here is where it gets incredibly strange and honestly a bit spooky. These monads have absolutely no windows. Nothing can enter or exit them, meaning they don't actually physically interact or touch each other at all. So how does the world work if nothing genuinely interacts? Through something called pre-established harmony. Their individual realities are perfectly coordinated from the very beginning, like infinite clocks ticking in flawless, miraculous unison. When you decide to raise your arm, your soul monad and your arm monads just happen to be perfectly synchronized by a divine setup to act together without ever exchanging a single signal. Crazy, right?
But as the mathematician translating this specific text in our source discovers, this leads to a dizzying conclusion. If everything is just perfectly coordinated relations and perceptions, then the universe isn't a collection of physical objects at all. It's a differential equation solving itself. It sums perfectly to a kind of metaphysical zero. It's not a thing. It's pure mathematics and structure. It's an absolute conceptual mic drop to realize reality might just be an elegant equation quietly balancing out.
Now we open the third Russian doll, the computational glitch. We're stepping into a narrative inspired by the sci-fi writer Stanisław Lem, where a cybernetic constructor named Turl builds an ultra-distiller machine to finally calculate this irreducible foundation once and for all.
Let's see how this brilliant deconstruction builds. Turl drops a simple physical wrench into his machine to see what happens. First, at level 1, the machine strips away the physical metal alloy and its functional purpose as a tool. Then, it dives deeper into level 2, reducing the wrench to its bare iron atoms in crystalline structure. Deeper still into level 3, where those atoms become quantum wave functions and probability fields. Moving to level 4, the quantum fields dissolve into pure abstract mathematical relations. Finally, at level 5, the machine literally reduces the physical tool into the number 7 and the pure concept of wrenchness in a state of superposition. It completely distills the object into abstract meaning.
But Trull gets a little too ambitious. He inputs himself into the machine to find the ultimate foundation of a conscious observer. The machine instantly suffers an infinite regress, trying to reduce a self-referencing system, and it spits out a terrifying realization. The foundation of reality is simply the glitch itself. Yes, the universe's ultimate foundation is essentially a cosmic blue screen of death. The error message is the foundation.
Trull doesn't give up, though. Realizing the universe might be built on self-referential loops, he pivots and builds a narrative extractor, proposing that reality is fundamentally made of stories. It proves that even a mindless hydrogen atom is basically a dramatic Shakespearean hero following a deeply embedded 5-act story arc. In Act 1, our hero seeks stability in a chaotic universe. In Act 2, it faces the ultimate existential threat of gravitational collapse. Act 3 brings rising action as it dramatically merges with another atom. Act 4 is the climax, reaching a magnificent supernova's finale. And finally, in Act 5, it achieves redemption by being forged into a heavier element. Physics, it turns out, is just dehumanized narrative.
But, just like before, when Trull forces the machine to analyze the very story of the robots analyzing the story, it completely crashes. It hits a massive metafictional paradox. Because, well, you can't step outside the narrative to analyze the narrative. The machine literally outputs error 404, foundation not found. It folds in on itself, leaving us with one giant cosmic shrug.
Which brings us to the ultimate dizzying resolution. We've pushed the physical, the metaphysical, and the computational threads to their absolute limits to find what's known as the groundless ground.
Reality, it turns out, isn't a pyramid resting on a solid bedrock of atoms, math, or code. It is a strange, self-sustaining loop. It's like an arch that stands precisely because there's absolutely nothing underneath it. The stones just support each other perfectly. As the source text brilliantly puts it, the universe is a single, infinite substance perceiving itself in an eternal loop of a self-dreaming dream.
So, what should we actually take away from all this? Well, a few profound conclusions synthesize our journey here. First, the irreducible unit cannot be isolated. You can't just pin it down under a microscope. Second, reality is fundamentally a self-referential fold, continuously curving back on itself. Third, the search for the foundation is the foundation. Fourth, the universe is a dynamic, ongoing process of self-interrogation. And finally, we are reality describing itself. The lack of a solid bedrock isn't chaos or nihilism. It's the very birthplace of freedom, novelty, and existence itself.
The source document concludes with this brilliant realization. The irreducible unit of this entire puzzle isn't the words or the ideas or the math. It's you. You, the observer, caught in the space between the concepts, actively making sense of it all. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If the universe is an equation trying to solve itself, what part of the solution are you?